Hello and welcome to the Holy Hour Podcast, the bi-weekly all-cure podcast. I'm Gavin, and thanks so much for joining us. We hope you're doing well out there. We have a wonderful episode for you guys today. This episode seemed to just drop right out of the sky for us. It was another gift from our friend Arusha, who's always been hooking us up with great content since the early days of this podcast, and today is no exception. She recorded a conversation earlier this year with 3 other Cure fans. The main gist was centered around Cure chats and the old school chat formats and different ways that Cure fans could chat with each other. And like all wonderful Cure fan conversations, it goes down many other roads of Cure fandom and stories, all that juicy stuff that we love to hear here on the Holy Hour Podcast. So this is a wonderful conversation that I really am excited to share with you guys, and really can't thank Arusha enough for sending it my way. So you'll notice that this was recorded earlier in the year, so the pandemic talk is a little more grim than what's going on right now, luckily. But keep that in mind. It does seem like things are picking up out there. Mostly shows scheduled for the fall and such, but you know, the sun is starting to shine again. Fingers crossed, don't jinx ourselves, but let's keep it rolling, keep getting those vaccinations out there so we can make all these plans come to life and get back to seeing bands in the Cure in particular. Still waiting on that big news from Robert, so we'll see. We'll see, fingers crossed. But yeah, I think you're really going to enjoy this. Like I said, it's just a very cool conversation with 3 longtime Cure fans. This is exactly what the show was meant to be when I first put it together. I thought, well, I'll just get this rolling, and then it'd be cool if other people just recorded their conversations with their friends, and I just kind of wrangled it together for you each week. And so if you like the way this is going, I still want to keep that open invitation out there. If you get talking Cure with your buddies out there, or just want to do some solo rambling, I'm always up for putting it out and just putting it on here as an episode. So keep that in mind as you listen to this, of how fun it is just to hear people talk Cure. So I'm going to embrace the fact it's not just me rambling in this episode and let these guys take over. We got Arusha, we got Dana, Loren, and Hugh, all chatting it up and talking classic Cure chats here on the Holy Hour Podcast.
Yay! The little button is red. All right. So thank you all for coming to this little interview about chat rooms. My name is Arusha, and I do this thing called Push, a Cure fan documentary. Obviously, we don't have any shows to talk about, but we've been doing these Cure watch parties, and in one of the watch parties, there's all these like sidebars in the chat log. And at one point, some of us started talking about the old school chat rooms. And I always love hearing about the old lore of like how people got into this mess that we're in. A part of me wants to ask, what is a chat room? Maybe if you want to talk about how you got in, or what your first foray was into specifically Cure chat rooms. Anything sort of you want to say about that?
Okay, well, I'm Dana. I'm from Austin, Texas, and I've been in Austin, Texas since I started listening to The Cure, even though I've gone back and forth to other places. But when I think about old school talking to people about The Cure, I think, long story short, I think I started kind of corresponding with other Cure people in the 80s with the Other Voices zine. And then it kind of morphed into the Babel mailing list, which wasn't a chat room so much as like an email list. And then there's the Cure MFC. I think that was one that I was on for a long time. And then after that, I think the various kind of online discussion boards and things. I don't remember if there was a Cure board on Usenet. I probably would have been reading on that, but I cannot remember a thing about it. If there was.
I think there was, but I don't remember using it.
Usenet?
It was probably a group for The Cure, but I don't know if it must not have been that active, or I would have remembered.
Is that what you said?
Usenet, like
yeah.
Usenet.
Yeah.
What the hell is a Usenet?
It was
Usenet.
It was the internet before the internet. I don't know. It was like
that was.
So this was literally before. Well, there was internet. We just didn't have access to it.
It was like
like FBI agents had the internet, but
yeah. And people in universities, but
Usenet, it was just a lot of different groups. I probably got into it late, probably 94, but before I got into it, someone figured out how to send binary files through it, so it became this huge thing to share files.
90% of it porn.
Yeah, alternate to FTP. But like anything on the internet, someone's eventually going to figure out how to use it for porn.
That's probably just Loren's stuff, that is.
If it exists, there is porn of it.
Ooh, baby.
When you say binary file,
just files.
Like uploaded as a text file, right?
Yeah, text format, and then you would decode it on your end.
That's why actually Russians don't like hexadecimal as a programming language, because it's not binary.
I didn't know that.
Sorry, that's a computer gag. Anyway, carry on.
A giant airplane just flew over my head. Woo! So Loren.
Get back to this. I'm Loren from. I'm from the Phoenix area in Arizona. I'm probably one of the few people that started listening to The Cure because I just happened to watch 120 minutes for a little bit, and there was a Cranes video. So then I bought all the albums I could of theirs. I loved them. Then this was after they had come with The Cure to Phoenix. Then I said, "Oh, they toured with The Cure. I should check out The Cure. I've heard of them. They're well known." So then I bought Kiss Me, and that was the end of it, right? I just became obsessed at that point, and so that's how I got on The Cure, through Cranes actually.
Right. So then you start getting into the chat rooms in like 94-ish.
Yeah. In 1994, I discovered the internet on a dial-up account, and at some point I discovered Internet Relay Chat, or IRC. So there was a Cure chat room that I was somewhat active in, and then I discovered Babbel, the mailing list, and I realized that there are other people out there that were into what I'm into. So I discovered that, and I was pretty much hooked and spent a lot of time on these email lists and the chat room for the next few years.
So the email list is the Babbel list, then the chat room is IRC, and then what is Usenet? I'm still obsessed with this Usenet thing. What is the difference?
That was just a network.
It's like it was originally a news reader, and you would be able to get news on on these topics, and then people started creating channels for different bands, and
totally unregulated.
Yeah, totally unregulated.
Yes.
I'm sure that I was on probably some Cure one, and I think the only other one I remember was alt.celebrity.gossip, which is really what it sounds like.
Unbelievable.
I worked at a university, so everybody got a free account.
Right. So Hugh, what was going on over in wherever you're from?
My name's Hugh. You can tell by my very thick accent, I'm actually a Scotsman. But I spent most of my time in early chat rooms living in London. There was I wasn't a member of Babbel per se. The main ones that I was involved on the MFC board. And got into quite a few slanging matches on that. But there were two genuine chat rooms that I was in. One was on AOL, where I sort of met people who I'm still friends with today. And the other one, which I've probably met more people, was a Yahoo site called Procure.
I think I remember that one.
When Procure actually sort of like developed and as sort of technology got better, I actually played live gigs as a Cure tribute artist to a Procure audience. So I'd sort of like plug everything in and then sort of like play a gig and play songs and whatever.
Now, was this all on video or was it audio?
Oh, it was all audio.
Because there's no way.
No, there's
That's super early for something like that, though.
What year-ish?
This was 2001-ish, I think.
But you were on chat rooms way, way before that.
I think I got into sort of AOL and stuff. I think it was sort of like 96, 97.
Okay.
The thing that was a bit annoying, and this is where America was so much further ahead than we were, is that we had dial-up, and we had to pay for the amount of time you were actually online. So therefore, you could sort of, if you were online for 4 hours, you were paying basically 4-hour telephone line. You couldn't ring in. Once you were online, no one could ring the house because it all went through, the telephone landline and stuff. So we used to, hundreds and hundreds of pounds worth of phone bills.
Well, yeah, there was one phone line in the house, and if you had someone else picked up the phone line, it would knock you off the internet, and you would have to call right back in.
The number you have reached is not in service. This is
where you would use your modem to dial through the landline to another modem that was connected to the internet. If someone picked up the phone receiver at your house, which were all connected together at the time, it would knock you right off the internet. It was basically text-based. Any pictures had to be sent as text at a speed. At the time, I had a speed of 14.4 kilobits per second. 14.4 kilobits per second.
14.4 kilobits per second. 14.4 kilobits per second.
Which, if you do a speed test, just imagine if you wanted to look at a picture, you had to start downloading the picture and then wait like 15, 20 minutes.
Unbelievable.
Things like that.
Imagine a Generation Z person listening to this, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, what? Because they have everything at their fingertips.
Yeah. I was trying to explain
lucky bastards
to an intern at work, and it's just, you can't really explain it, what it was like.
Well, that's what we're trying to do here.
Yes.
I was trying to tell my son about the whole concept of not being able to get stuff off the internet. Like if you wanted an album that you couldn't buy in your country, you'd have to literally write away for it and wait for somebody to mail it to you.
Or that one record store that could
just to hear it.
Get it for $30 for a the CD.
Yeah, and then you'd have to wait, and maybe it wouldn't be what you thought it was.
That may never come.
Yeah, so for me, I was in Arizona in junior high and high school when I discovered The Cure, and I saw my first show in '86 and just became obsessed. And so at that point, I don't even remember how I would hear about concerts. I guess it was probably in magazines or something, or the radio, or MTV.
Yeah.
I always had friends at record stores, and so I'd always go what's happening in the rumors and the mixtapes and stuff. Even to get concert tickets, I remember it's very specifically when the Wish tickets came on, because I don't remember buying the other 86 and 87, but when the Wish tour was happening, my friend Ian and I were like, we're going to get to the mall at 5 a.m. and nobody's going to be there.
Yeah.
We would plan to go to the least popular mall to stand in line to go get tickets from, what was it, like a grocery store or a... Yeah. Well, I don't even remember if you guys remember where we would get tickets.
I mean, 2016, I bought my some tickets at the grocery store.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a terrible idea because I didn't get any better tickets than if I'd gone online, but I thought, well, I'll do this. I can get to the front.
Right.
Yeah. I remember waiting overnight, and for the swing tour at the arena in downtown Phoenix. It was us and a lot of homeless people. They would just send them there. And the same thing, I had moved. Yeah. It was in the next year, Irving Plaza, New York City. Same thing. We waited. There were a few Cure fans and a lot of homeless people. Actually, a lot of homeless street kids that were just paid. Most of them didn't even know the Cure. One guy liked Burn, so we got along with him. He didn't know any other Cure songs.
In 1984, when the Cure played, they played Hammersmith Odeon, and they sort of played 3 dates. And I sent off all the tickets. I didn't know this at the time, but all the tickets outside London were £4.50, but the London ones were £5. So I sent off £9 for 2 tickets, thinking, I'll be fine. Not knowing the most expensive tickets. So I ended up in the front row of the balcony because all the expensive tickets were downstairs. But I mean, I did sort of things like in '83, I was at a boarding school and I queued overnight to get tickets to see David Bowie.
Did you get good seats?
It was playing a rugby stadium, so we were just stood at the front. But yeah, I mean, I think you know, if it had been discovered that I'd been doing that, I'd have probably been expelled from school and sort of things like that. But yeah, I mean, ticket buying is just.
The thing about it is like it's like trying to get people to understand that at that time in the 80s and early 90s is like, so how did we even find the music, find the bands, and then on top of that, whatever city you're in, most of the people that you're around, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but most of the people around me were like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You're a witch, you're a weirdo. I don't understand what race you are. Like, are you an Eskimo? You're a witch? I don't know. Now it's totally normal. It's like, you don't bat an eye. I mean, some people do, but you know, even in 92, I didn't know anything about Other Voices or any like the Cure news, the you know, in the UK, the UK to me, I had been to the UK once, but I just was like, people in the UK are just smarter. They're just cooler because I just didn't.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. The grass always looks greener. I know that was something me too.
I mean, I think the way that we discovered music and whatever is, I mean, there's two sort of main ways that you discovered what I would say is alternative music. Radio 1 used to have a DJ, John Peel. I mean, he was a hero of mine, and he just used to champion bands.
Right.
I mean, obviously, a lot of you will have heard the Cure sessions which were on broadcast on the John Peel show. So he would play stuff, and you would sort of discover stuff on that. Also, I mean, we had 4 weekly music press titles. There was like the NME, Melody Maker, Sounds, and Record Mirror.
Right.
That was the thing for me, was getting those copies of all those British magazines. That's how I found out about things.
It would be like going to the record store, like, where's the British stuff? Because
where's the enemy? Where's all the imports?
You know, like I don't want to hear REO Speedwagon right now. You know,
the thing that's quite interesting is that I actually discovered an awful lot of really good American bands through sort of things like NME, because I remember sort of like reading an article in I think Melody Maker sort of said, you have to go and see this gig, because it was like a double header. You have to go and see this double header. And I went, and I knew one song of the headline act and knew nothing of the support act. And I sort of went in, and when the support started and when the singer sang his first My Life, I mean, it's quite corny, but my life changed forever at that point. The gig was the Pixies supporting Throwing Muses.
Wow.
Oh, God,
and I knew one Throwing Muses song, and I knew nothing about the Pixies at all. And as soon as sort of like, you know, started off with Broken Face, and my life changed forever at that point. So I actually sort of, you know, I sort of get into a lot of bands who are on 4AD, which is an English language, but they used to go to America and find small American bands and girls. They basically break the UK first and then go back to America.
Right. Yeah. I had a friend who worked at 4AD.
But it was a phenomenal amount. I went to everything. So basically, if you had sort of, I mean, I remember in '89, it was sort of like, there was one gig in Glasgow, and then 2 in Birmingham, and then 3 in London. So it was all.
Are you talking about? Now you're talking about Cure shows.
Yeah, Cure shows. Yeah. The '92, and I basically was friends with someone who lived in Scotland, and so she bought tickets for all the northern shows, and I bought tickets for all the southern shows. So I went to all of those, and then sort of like later on that, you would just, you know, I would just go everywhere. And that sort of thing now, where you sort of like, you go to shows and you sort of like meet people who just basically travel around. One of my best friends is a guy who now lives in Brighton, but I met him on a trip going to see the Cure in Belgium, I think in 1996. Because the other thing, I don't know if this happened over in the States, but in the UK, there were companies who would sell a coach journey plus coach ticket plus hotel. So you would sort of send them £120 or whatever, and that would pay for your trip to the gig. So you'd all meet at London Victoria coach station at sort of like midnight the night before, and then you'd drive to Belgium, and be dropped off to go to the gig and then be picked up afterwards and taken back to the hotel.
Interesting.
But I mean, that doesn't happen now. I mean, if you wanted to go and see a gig in Belgium or whatever, you'd do it all on the internet.
Right. I mean, we've all met. I've met everybody here through literally meeting people at a Cure show, not online. So Loren, so you've lived in Phoenix for most of your life, is that?
Yeah, I spent 3 years in Pennsylvania, then I moved back.
Okay, no offense, but I like to say I did time in Arizona, because when I moved from Boston to Arizona, it was a big culture shock for me, and I was really miserable. But that said, I met some of my best friends there, et cetera, et cetera. And I do think that like the freaks kind of got together because there were so few of us. Unlike what you're talking about, Hugh. That like my reality was like so different than that. Is that where you met my friend Jennifer? This is just an aside.
I knew her from, I think, chat rooms, and I think she may have been on Babel too. I think she was.
Oh shit!
So I knew her.
Yep.
So yeah, a lot of us from Babel and IRC saw the show in Denver in '96, and she was there. Met a lot of people there, and then so I knew her from then. And then when I saw the Cure were touring, I said, "Hey, we should." I made sure I hung out with her because I knew her. I'm pretty nervous about meeting bands. Being a huge Morrissey fan, you can see why. Because I don't. I would be afraid if I would talk to him.
Well, I would be afraid of him now, to be honest, as well. He's a
I don't
fucking nut. Yeah.
He's
You might just
I did see the Smiths in 1984. If that sort of,
I saw them in '86. They were great.
I saw them on the Queen is Dead tour.
I saw them in 85, 86. It was right before the Queen is Dead came out, and I actually saw them in Aberdeen, because I was in England, and that was the only date that I could get to. So I got on a train, went up there. I didn't know a single soul. I didn't have a place to stay. I slept at the train station. It was a great show.
Ooh, so it's in your blood, the travel bug for the band.
Yeah, it's just not in my pocketbook and my other arrangements. I'm like, it's pandemic to be done so I could travel.
Yeah, tell me about it. We've established that we have mailing lists. We have this Usenet weird thing. And then IRC and MFC, which I don't really difference. And then in your personal experience, like living in Arizona, how did that open up your world? Like what's the positive side of what you experienced?
Mailing list, you look in your email, you usually have a folder for it, and it just fills up with there could be 50, 100 posts a day back then. The chat room basically is literally you're just chatting. It doesn't exist beyond the time you were there. It's just you're just talking. You just happen to be all Cure fans, likely because you're in that room. Few people joined that weren't, which I never understood why. But the chat room was big because, like, I think I met one of my best friends on that chat room that happened to live in the Phoenix area, and so we met up at a local club and we're friends since then because he was also a huge Cure fan. Yeah, the internet itself was exciting, especially for I was a horribly awkward and shy teen. So you had these people you could talk to if you're introverted, but there's somebody who has shared interests. All of a sudden you become the biggest extrovert around because you have that icebreaker that's just comes so difficult to you naturally. I had friends, but I didn't have a lot of people that I knew were fans of these bands. So just the ability to talk to people remotely and then find people with shared interests was just something you couldn't do locally.
I mean, I think it's almost that sort of thing where it's funny because my wife doesn't sort of like me wearing band T-shirts. But if you wear a band T-shirt, you can meet somebody who will go, I like that band, the T-shirt you're wearing.
Sure.
And almost the sort of like the chat room was almost like the equivalent of meeting somebody with a Cure T-shirt on in public.
Yeah.
As you sort of like say, Loren, it's sort of if you're in a room with sort of Cure fans, you're all in there because you have one thing in common. And that's the Cure. So at least you've got something to talk about. And also because you're behind a keyboard, rather than actually having to sort of like do it in public, You can say what you like, talk what you like, because if anything goes wrong, you can either just step back from it or close it or sort of go away or whatever. So, those of us, because I mean, I'm the same. I know Arusha will probably find this very difficult to believe, but I actually find it sort of quite difficult to talk to people, or used to. But a lot of it is because you're sort of like, you're in a room with people that you have something in common with, and you can therefore then talk and make relationships and make friendships. And then obviously chat rooms would then obviously talk about sort of like more non-cure things. But that was the thing that brought you together in the first place.
Right. I didn't have those chat rooms because I wasn't technically savvy. I think I got a computer in 1997. I just was not on my radar. And when I got Cure News, which is another story, I mean, that was like a ticket to heaven. I was like, oh my God. And I saw the list of like all the people in the back saying like, I'm from Russia and write to me. So and all my friends had been pen pals. So for me, it's an interesting thing to think about just because I wasn't a part of it.
Well, something that you haven't mentioned, which I was going to ask about, is what was Club America?
No idea. Anyone?
I don't know.
Because I mean, I actually have, because I went through a stage. I mean, I don't have as many as I used to, but I have a whole load of Cure T-shirts.
Your wife's gonna be pissed.
And one T-shirt I have is for Club America, and it's just got loads of. In fact, actually, I might have a Babel one as well. In fact, that is all signed by people who were either part of it or whatever. And Club America was run by a girl who was based in Austin. Can't remember for the life of me what her name was.
I remember there was the Cure News and Three Imaginary Boys in France, which of course I had no clue about, and then Babel, and then all these chat rooms, and then Craig Chain of Flowers started in 1996. So, and then Autumn Bellman started doing Pictures of You, and she was this massive like glue to a lot of sources. Internationally, and of course for us in the States. But I think Hugh, Club America, I think started in the later, like I would say, I think after 96, this period between 96 and after Blood Flowers into 2002 were like a bazillion online things sprouted up.
Right.
Which then became the end of things like Cure News.
And which fanzine person was based out of Oklahoma? I'm trying to remember.
That's Other Voices. The Other Voices was advertised in the back of those goofy, it was Star Hits magazine.
Okay, so yeah. I specifically stopped at her record store. I remember driving cross country and was it 97?
Yeah, so she kind of like, I mean, her fanzine, Other Voices, was such a huge part of the story. I mean, even there's somebody that follows my stuff, the bass player for the Eagles of Death Metal. Her name is Jenny V. She goes by the Jenny V. Beautiful, talented. And she wrote to me and she said, I'm a huge Cure fan. Here's a picture of me in 1990. And I met, I had friends and pen pals through Other Voices. So Hugh and Dana were on MFC.
Yes.
And Loren was on IRC.
Yes.
Right? And who was in the AOL chat room?
I was.
No, I know, but no, so neither of you were?
Not.
No.
X, Y, and Z.
I was not on any of this shit, so I have no clue.
I think what it was that the internet obviously sort of like being new and whatever. I mean, I bought my first PC in 1996, I think. And yeah, I sort of you sort of joined AOL and whatever, and you just sort of see all these chat rooms, and you sort of like look through a chat room for something that you knew about. I just found one for the Cure, so I just sort of like went in. But I think because of it was my sort of like presence and participation in those early chat rooms that sort of like got me sort of slightly, sort of well known in the beginning, because I wasn't afraid to tell people how much I hate Disintegration. So it's.
Do you hate Disintegration?
He loves talking about that.
Yeah, incredibly.
He like comes in with this like chip.
Yeah, dirge. I call it dirge integration. The thing with Disintegration is it, the actual album itself is played at the wrong speed. On Treat is a far better album than Disintegration is because they play it at the right speed.
What do you mean the right speed?
Because it should be slightly quicker.
The right speed, according to Hugh.
Disintegration on Treat is far better than Disintegration on the actual album.
I'm going to have to go and listen to that later. I'm very curious about this.
And the other thing is I don't think Disintegration actually really has any particular standout tracks. It's all just sort of like 169 minutes worth of the same thing, really. And Love Song is such a great song to play Candy Crush to. Yes, I know, but Just Like Heaven. But Just Like Heaven is one of the greatest pop songs ever released. But it's not as lazy as Love Song is.
Oh, it's like vanilla and chocolate.
I will respectfully disagree. I love Plain Song.
I love Untitled. I think that's my standout track on that.
I love that album. I love every track on it. It brings back memories of me and my first serious girlfriend. So I don't think that album can do any wrong in my eyes. So I know not everyone has the same taste in music I do. So I would have to say I love that album.
It sounds like,
but it's very personal.
Well, it sounds like what we need to do is get a hold of Trey Parker and Matt Stone from South Park and get a Hugh character in there.
Yeah.
That's fine. So what's your favorite Cure album? What's your favorite Cure album, Dana?
Oh, it's like, what's my favorite finger? I'm not sure. I mean,
that one? No, sorry.
Yeah, it's this one. Pornography. I don't know. I mean, I always fall back on that trilogy of well, it's not even really 17 Seconds Faith. I think Faith, Pornography, but then I love The Top so much. And Head on the Door, I don't think I can be objective about because, like Loren was saying, that was, it came out at such a pivotal time in my life that I don't think I can hear it without it being sort of, it seems perfect. And I think I was listening to it not too long ago and feeling like, objectively, maybe this isn't a perfect album. I'm just hearing it through the filter of hearing it in the summer, going to London for the first time and just having this totally unexpected, like I bought it on cassette and listened to it headphones for 2 weeks nonstop. And I just think it makes an impression on you that you can't separate from that time that it came from.
Yeah, I don't feel that way at all. That's part of what I love about The Cure is like the evolution of it. And even songs that I hated, like in 39.
I love 30. I've always loved 39. I think it's 39. A brilliant song.
Well, when it came out, it was my bathroom song. Now, for whatever reason, it's like, okay, I first of all, I think it sounds better live. And second of all, it makes more sense to me. And that's something that I really appreciate about The Cure and the way that they play and the way that they practice. I mean, the thing about Robert Smith, the guy sonically knows his shit. And so to me, the fact that they're still playing and they practice and they practice and they practice, I can't play that. I couldn't go out and play 3 hours, and they're 60 years old. So I have to give them something to the fact that they're not my personal recording machine. They're not robots. They're people who have good and bad days. And maybe some of those songs, playing them over and over and over again, is just like, fucking, we just got to do this and we got to play it well. I can't argue with that. Does that make sense?
It does. The thing I was actually going to sort of pick up actually was on something you were saying about the way that the band evolve. Now, this is possibly my problem, is the fact that I don't think they've evolved much at all in the sort of like since 413 Dream. And one of the reasons why I love 17 Seconds Faith and Pornography so much is because of all the energy and all the angst. And, anger makes great music. I'm looking forward to the new album and sort of seeing what it's like. But no,
If there is
completely.
one.
Oh my God.
No.
I'll believe this when I see it.
I haven't been seeing a lot of Cure shows in the last since the Dream Tour. I got into a lot of debt and I just couldn't go, and then I got married for a decade, and it wasn't. I think in that decade I saw 2 shows.
Yeah,
so
that'll do it.
now that I can now that I can go see the Cure whenever I want, I went to the one in Pasadena. I loved it, but I have a different way of thinking about shows now. I'm just happy for what I get, because other than that, I don't get anything.
There is something just kind of exciting about just being out there. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Just Mexico City was phenomenal. That was a good show, even though it was pretty much the same set list, but the audience was so good.
Mm-hmm.
They were so enthused about it. I will definitely go see them if they play Mexico ever again, because they knew the words to every single song. Everybody was singing along, not just a few people. And they were like, it was just something I never experienced before.
Mm.
And it occurred to me, a lot of the people that are singing every single word to every single song don't speak English. So it was that much more, I don't know. A lot of it is the audience.
A live gig is made by its audience, and because the band then feed off it, and
I think that's the paradox about it. I don't know, it was just a very positive atmosphere, just like everybody was just dancing and going crazy, but not in a violent way. It was enthusiastic, but not a violent kind of mosh pit enthusiasm. It was
in Pasadena during the it was during the Deftones. Everyone around me just started moshing, and I at some point I ended up on the ground and scraped up my leg pretty bad, but I powered on. I loved that show. I had a great time. I don't think I remember ever not loving a Cure show I've been at. Even though I knew exactly what the set list was going to be, I heard, recordings or even periscopes of pretty much the same show. I was kind of disappointed that was it Throwing Muses, right? We're on the second stage.
Yeah, what was with all the men on one stage and the women on the other, Robert?
Yeah, I really wanted to see them, but I wasn't going to go try to even consider fighting my way back to where I was. So I'm pretty easy to please when it comes to Cure shows, I'll tell you that.
Well, I think, like what we're all talking about is, like, first of all, we're all still here spending hours out of our time talking about this band. So clearly there's something to it still, no matter whether you're, sort of doubting whether you're going to go to another show, like Hugh was saying, or in and out of it like Dana. Or for me, it's an evolution, not only with the Cure, but with myself. It's also, for me, one of the most constant things in my life. And I don't know about you guys, but like my life right now is, and has been for the past 5 years, so incredibly unstable and like talking about finances and stuff, like there's a lot of uncertainty, and there's something beautiful to me about even with like Pictures of You, which is like a nice pop song that I didn't love. I liked it on the album when it came out, but for some reason, only in the last 4 or 5 years, every time I hear it live, I start crying. And I never was like that. Never. And I've heard that song in every single show. And I think it's having it, to me, it's having an openness to the song that not only does the song evolve, even if you've heard it again and again, but you evolve. And so now, cut to 2020/2021, our world has devolved because of the pandemic, and we can't even go outside. So how has the situation that we're thrown into now, have we circled back to 1994?
As when I was in my 30s, I realized I really like going out dancing to and a lot of clubs now cater to our type of music because we now have disposable income and so I would go out and dance to a lot of like mostly 80s alternative, and I just got used to being able to do that like once a month. And
you're talking about recently now ish.
Yeah, and now that's just been cut off. So it's almost like the same isolation where I'm into this world that I just don't have access to except for streaming music and whatnot, or watching videos on YouTube. But then getting into the watch party and talking to people, it's like you're all of a sudden reconnected to that world, and it's just a lot like it was when I was 18 and discovered there's a world out there of like-minded people that are a lot of them in the same position I was, where we don't know anyone else that's into the Cure or whatever obscure music we were into. So it just brought back those memories of just like you're in your cave and you get to step outside of your cave for just a little bit.
The cave of COVID isolation and things being shut down.
Yeah.
And then just the escapism of it, isn't it? It's sort of like trying to get out the shit you're in, and sort of it's almost like sometimes if you like watch a movie and it sort of like takes you somewhere, and it sort of takes you away from where you are. And the Cure parties in some ways, because we can't go out and meet each other and sort of jump up and down and sort of shout that love song's crap, you can actually now sort of do that almost in a chat room environment while the movie is on in the background. So it has performed, I think, a great service. It's almost like the sort of Tim Burgess listening parties that he's had for albums. It's sort of like that, but for Cure fans.
I think that is a lot of it. I think part of it is it's as it was back then, that there's a lot of us that are using all these technologies for the first time, that the concept of constantly getting on video calls with other people, and it's the fact that there are all these new things that were happening. I mean, that's the crazy part, is that if there was no quarantine, I wouldn't be going out and meeting with Cure fans and doing that I would be doing other things, because I don't know that many Cure fans in real life. So it's kind of like it's for me, it's kind of enabling me to go back to that. I can pick any one of the many sets of friends I have, so I might as well pick the ones that are into the Cure right now and to kind of spend time hanging out with. Whereas if you're in real life, then you've got your in real life friends, your online friends, and you're kind of choosing, am I going to stay home or go out? I don't know. It's this strange sort of in between period when we're just waiting for something to happen. That I think a lot of it is just having this extra time to try to figure out what are we going to do with it. That feels very incoherent, but
no.
We're in the in-between days.
We are in the in-between days, for sure. I personally don't. I will never run out of things to do or worry about occupying my time. So,
no, me neither.
I think what I'm hearing you say more is that, like, it's a way to connect
with the outside world
in a way that we can't connect. Like Loren was saying, you can't go to the dance floor. We can't. You saying we can't jump up and down at the gig and argue in person over a beer about disintegration. When I was in the 2016 tour in Idaho, I went by myself and I was next to some guy. Maybe he was hitting on me, I don't know. But he's like, well, how many Cure shows have you gone to? And I turned to him and I was like, I don't know, over 100. And he was staring, like with his mouth open, just kept staring at me. And I'm like, what? Like, watch the band.
Yeah.
And he couldn't wrap his head around the fact that I had gone to see this band so much.
But saying, but like if someone had, let's say, season tickets to the Yankees for 20 years and had been to 500 Yankee games, people wouldn't bat an eye. They'd say, oh, that's just normal.
That's a good analogy.
So I never understood how somehow going to see the same band or going to see the same sports team hundreds of times or whatever is totally different, but for some reason it is.
That's a huge theme in all my movie stuff. Is like,
thank you. That's a really good thing.
Yeah, I not thought of it like that.
Yeah.
To me, I think my thesis is sort of that it goes back to rock and roll when it was born was a teenage riot act. You know what I mean? It was like, yeah, we're smoking in the garage, and black music stolen by white people and then intermixed. Yeah. You know what I mean? So maybe there was like some covert action and it stood for this like blend of like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But there's always this like attachment to youth and nostalgia. And so people think that if you go to a show when you're 50 years old, that you must want to really live your 18-year-old self. Yeah. I can tell you right now, I do not want to live my 18-year-old self, my 15-year-old self.
Yeah, I don't want to go back there.
No.
Last Dance. I have always liked Last Dance, but I've never loved it. And in 2016, for me, a woman now standing who was once there was always a girl, I was like, it just hit me personally in an evolved way. And then to top it off with meeting, like as we all discussed, meeting new fans, meeting younger fans, like these kids who weren't even born when Blood came out. It's amazing. And then so now to go into these chat rooms where these parties, like for us hosting it, it's like it's so beautiful to see like so-and-so's here from Brazil and Ecuador and Australia.
Oh yeah, the younger fans is probably my favorite part, just because it's I know it's going to continue. It doesn't die with us. It something about that makes me happy.
But I mean, all good music is timeless.
Yeah,
doesn't really matter. I mean, I remember sort of saying that. I think I was at I think was it 87 or 89. I think I was at a gig in Birmingham, and I saw a kid who must have been about 5 or 6 wearing a Cure in Orange t-shirt. And I just thought, that's good parenting right there.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that there will be young kids wanting to find out about the Cure, discovering that pornography is so much better than disintegration, but they will find that out in time, and they will understand why their parents or their grandparents go absolutely mad for this person that they look at and go, he looks a bit odd. What is it? And then they'll understand, and that what we understand, and then the 80-year-old will become like the 8-year-old because it's brought together by the music.
Loren, do you is there a part of you that thought that maybe the younger generation, like the Cure, might fall off with the younger people?
Yeah, there was, because it's probably the same with a lot of bands. I'm sure, Jimi Hendrix fans thought the same thing, but then when I was in high school, there were probably more Jimi Hendrix t-shirts than Cure t-shirts, right? So it's probably just a fear that it'll be a footnote in history, but especially after that Pasadena show, there's a lot of people that were in their early 20s around me. So I said, and they were there for the Cure specifically. So, and I know a couple people locally that are younger that are huge Cure fans. So it's an unfounded fear, that's for sure.
I don't know that it's unfounded, even though Hugh is right that music is timeless. If you are an active music listener, and music is so important to you as it is clearly for all of us, that like, I know that next year I might finally understand why people like Scott Walker so much. I still don't understand, but I still have my Scott Walker records, hoping that maybe I'll understand what the big fucking deal is about Scott Walker, because I'm really into music and music is timeless, and I can discover a new band from meaning somebody who's dead, you know. But at the same time, something happened with rock and roll that was very like,
you know, if you go up to your average sort of like non-music person, they know who the Beatles are. They know Beatles songs. And the Beatles are a 60s band. Which is even before I was born.
Right, but with bands like The Cure, who are like pinned in the normal world to their height, which was in the 80s, their height of like mass popularity, you know, going to see a band 1 million times is really not a big deal. It's like nobody's going. I don't know anybody who became a homeless drug addict from following The Cure. Do you?
Yeah, and speaking of the football fans, you hear ones where their great grandfathers went to every game for 40 years. Their grandfathers went to every game for 40 years, and their fathers did. You hear them brag about that, and everyone's just impressed. No one bats an eye, but for some reason, it just hasn't transferred.
I also my theory on that, because like I said, that actual theme that you're talking about is like, I purposefully have interviewed people about that topic because it's very important to me. And my other theory is that with sports, it's a little bit of the fucking patriarchy. It's a little bit of like, well, it's a competition, and so it's kind of more manly, whereas music is like this like softer. Even if you're listening to Crass, it doesn't matter. It's just that it's a communal. There's no competition. So a lot of people are like, well, wait a minute, you've checked off seeing Rush off of your list, you know what I mean, or Arcade Fire or whatever. But Dana, what are your thoughts of The Cure Next Generation?
Well, I do have a kid that likes The Cure enough to have gone to a show with me, and he'll listen to them, but it's not really. But I also kind of feel like, I don't know, for some strange reason, I don't want to push him. It's almost like that's the band that I listen to, and that the bands that you guys listen to are whatever you want to listen to. And
we don't want him to rebel and go against The Cure.
You know, I don't know. It's like, I mean, okay, I think about my dad was my dad's musical taste was pretty good, but I didn't really get into it until a long time later. He was really into Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that. And I always thought of that as like the kind of music that dads listen to. And it wasn't until I was in college that I started feeling like, you know, this is actually worth paying attention to. And I almost feel like I want my kids to kind of come about to, if you're interested, you'll check it out. And I'll like rhapsodize about this Cure song I really love, but.
So it has to come about organically, as you're saying.
Yeah. Well, I think that part of it is that it is that whole, that most of the early years I listened to The Cure on headphones. It was a very like, it was a, you know, I didn't blast them out of speakers, so I'm not really, it's something I'm not, other than being at a live show, I'm not accustomed to sharing. I don't know, it's like, it almost seems like it's too intimate to play out over the stereo system and go, oh, hey family, listen to this. I don't know why. There's other kinds of music that I love to listen to, that I love to kind of blast for everybody to hear, but for some reason it's a very personal thing.
So if we go into the era of The Cure IRC chats, I think Roger started getting into these IRC chat rooms before he got back into the band. And the other thing is The Cure house, The Cure room. But just that we had that kind of access to them at all in that time period.
Just having, it just would be unthinkable to have that access to any musician without possibly winning a radio contest or something like that. Like that's, or camping out outside the venue or something like that, stalking them at the hotel room. That was in
the 90s.
That was your only way. Yeah, in the 90s. There's just no way to have a connection. You could write letters to a fanzine. Just the idea of this person's here and you can talk to them like they're on a multi-line phone conversation or something. It was unthinkable.
I remember a little bit of the very early band website that there was a message board that you could write things on, but it was more like just sort of writing things on the wall. It was not really discussion about the band or about anything else. It was just kind of a lot of random stuff. I think it was just still in the process of evolving.
I don't know if you were ever in the Cure chat room, like in the Cure house.
On the actual band website. I did it a few times. Yeah, it was just like kind of, I remember it as completely kind of nuts.
Nuts in what sense?
I didn't do it that much. Well, just like complete chaos with people randomly like saying things.
Oh, you mean it just went so fast?
I think there was just a lot of kind of random discussion. I don't remember spending that much time on it because it wasn't all that productive for kind of communication. There's nothing to stop a kind of flood of, it's just like if you were there in person and there was, a huge mob of people all kind of clamoring at once, and everybody, like 95% of them just want kind of, to be personally acknowledged or say, I love you, or, the kind of garbage that you don't really get much meaningful interaction. So I did a little bit of digging in my files, and I couldn't find any sort of transcripts or emails. I found a little bit of back and forth with Roger I think it was over email when he'd just been kicked out of the band, and kind of, he was very kind of personable and kind of communicative at that point. But I guess that point he thought he wasn't in the band anymore.
During the Dream Tour, one of my favorite things to do before a show was to just walk through the parking lot and just talk to the various people tailgating there. And a lot of them, that was, they drove 4 hours. That's the only Cure show they're going to see that tour. Everyone was so excited. Everyone was so excited. Everyone was happy to talk. I could, like I think I said before, I was pretty shy guy. I was able to talk to the people there.
The visual of you walking around, at the tailgate parties on the Dream Tour is very nice, because people now are more on their phones. I mean, there are tailgate parties, but
I'd say not. I don't remember. No one was on their cell phone yet, right? It just didn't exist back then. They existed, but
they were like this.
Not a single smartphone existed in the world. So completely different times.
But is there any, how Dana was talking about the Cure community or whatever? Do you do any of that stuff? Or?
Just, what? I think recently I joined some of the Facebook groups, which I actually like. That's another place where you realize there's a lot of young Cure fans out there. They're just discovering things. Many. I was always the type of person, I really didn't get jealous of when my friends did something I couldn't do. I would try to live vicariously through them. So it's almost like I love hearing someone discover the Cure and just, kind of like live vicariously through someone that it's new to, especially someone with the naivety of being like 20 or something like that.
Right.
That you don't realize how naive you are.
Youth is wasted on the youth.
That's true.
Yeah.
And maybe this can sort of be a wrap-up point, but with the in-between days or Head on the Door in 1985 and it being personal and you not wanting to pass it on to your kids, not that you don't want to, but
yeah, I just don't want to force it, I guess.
But something that you're bringing up, which I think is particular about this band and about other bands, but this band in particular, is how you can go to a show and you can have this deeply personal moment with a song and feel like this deep connection to it, but you're also having a universal experience, because the music of the Cure and the lyrics, for the most part, takes you through the highs and lows of life. They're not a party band. We're not going to see Kiss or Guns N' Roses, right? Or
no,
there's difference. People want to like party, or there's people who want to whatever.
But yeah, there's a place for that.
So I wonder in the like Cure in all of our Cure timelines as individuals, coming and going and getting into a chat room or coming onto the Cure watch parties now, if maybe some of that tenderness could be linked to the fact that these chat rooms and these Babel things were like kind of personal, like they're mine. They're my,
yeah.
Like when I got Cure News for the first time and I got it late, I was like, now I have a bridge to the people that understand me. That's very dramatic, and half of it's not true.
Found my people.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if maybe we could talk a little bit about that sensation or idea.
Well, it's interesting because the music itself is kind of so often it comes back to this contrast between being alone and wanting to be with someone. I mean, like 95% of the songs kind of point back around to this kind of in between days thing of like, wanting to be together, wanting to be apart, feeling alone. And I don't know if that's just a coincidence, if that's what most music is about in the end anyway, but there's something simultaneously intimate and communal at being at a show. And there's actually something that is the same with kind of having people that online, is that you're these communities where it's kind of like a liminal space where this is the only place where this happens. That if you were meeting them at a bar down the street, it might not really have that same kind of appeal. It would be something different. That it's this little world that only exists in these where this group of people comes together, and it's somewhat fluid. So you can come and go. If you move to a different place in your life, you might cycle out. Maybe somebody else might cycle in. So it's very welcoming to somebody who's feeling sort of like there's no place for them.
Definitely. It's you have a band which I mean, obviously, looking at the fan base, attracts people that are maybe that march to the beat of their own drummer, and just the experience of being able to connect to other people like that.
Yeah,
it's one of the kind of I keep collapsing back into like cliches, that this strange kind of point that we live in, that it's collapsing back into that online community is all we have now. I mean, it's going to change all the connections that people have with people who are online in this kind of extra world, that where it's not part of the world that you're walking around in, but the world you're walking around in is your house. The house you're walking around in is just that is your world right now. Like everyone's world has gotten much smaller, and so that you're this little node, and all your connections are so much more important now. And it's going to change, and it'll go to whatever it's going to be next. That I don't think it's going to be the same as it was before. It's a liminal time where we really are kind of in between two things, because I think a lot of the world is going to be different once we come out of this. Hopefully we'll have live gigs in this next world.
Hopefully.
I fucking hope so. My nervous system is diminished. I can't even walk into a club where I'm going to feel awkward and leave. I don't even have the privilege of feeling awkward in a crowd. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If I'd have known the last show I went to was going to be the last show I went to for, over a year or whatever, I would.
Oh my God, yeah.
I think the last show I went to was the Chameleons. Fox, which is the singer of the Chameleons. If I just would have known that was going to be my last show, I don't know. Maybe I would have gotten there early and taken the next day off of work.
Enjoyed it a little bit more. Mine was ACL, and I didn't think that would be it for a while.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be able to get together and see live music again, and we're gonna wrap this up. We can't can't stay on the ride forever, but thank you so much for chatting, and clearly we could just chat on for...
This was fun.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
All right, again, a giant thank you to Arusha, Loren, and Dana, and Hugh. Thanks for sharing that conversation with us. So much cool insight and fun things to reminisce and ponder with all things chat-related and the Cure. Yeah, I never really got in on the chats back in the early days either. It would always just kind of ramble on too fast. Even some of these, like even during the watch parties, I get stuck just either watching or chatting, and maybe I'm just terrible at multitasking. Well, I don't think it's a maybe. I'm definitely terrible at multitasking. So yeah, I always just get sucked into one too much, or the topic goes before I can really chime in with what I want to. But I did like the message boards. I think at some point I would start to track down those early AOL message boards, and occasionally you'd get some good scoop on that, and find people to trade bootlegs with or something along those lines. I like the slower pace of the message boards, and you can kind of come and go as you please. Again, a giant thank you to Arusha for recording, editing, and producing this entire episode. Was a nice break. Really appreciate it. Please check out her projects at curefandocumentary.com. She's got a 4th installment of her wonderful zine, Push, a Cure fan zine, that is available now. Go to curefandocumentary.com to figure out how to order that. It's a really cool issue that you don't want to miss out on. And follow her at curefandoc on Instagram, and you should be able to get all the scoop you need over there. Speaking of scoop, we'd love to give a big old shout out to our Patreon crew: Donna, Craig, Jeff Hilton, Matt, and Jeff, and Suzanne, and John. Lisa up in Calgary, who would also like us to know about Dickens, the pub up there that's been doing live streams. You can have your own dance party from home if you check out Dickens YYC on Twitch. It's Tuesdays and Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and at 9 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on Fridays. You get 3 chances to listen to great music. All your favorites are going to be there, and check out the live stream on Twitch, Dickens YYC, or at their Instagram of the same name, and see what's on the menu. Also, we'd like to give a big shout out to Scott over at the Sarlacc Digest, our favorite Star Wars podcast, where they're going through every episode of The Bad Batch on Monday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific time, and everything else Star Wars related. A great show, always good just to hear what those guys have to say after each episode, and their predictions of what's around the corner, not only on Bad Batch, but past Star Wars films and series, and what's on the bend and what's in store for the future of the franchise. So go on over to their YouTube page and watch the live shows at 8 p.m. on Monday nights, and you can also backtrack and catch all their past episodes there and interviews at Sarlacc Digest on YouTube. Also, CureThreads.com is where you're going to find Kate's awesome original designs and products. Just what you need for this summer. They got some new ones popping up over there that you got to check out. Also, her latest book is for sale over there, Secret Life of the Sloth, which is an adorable children's book that Kate has illustrated, all about our favorite creature, the sloth. And there's other animals too, if you want to expand beyond that. So check all that out at CureThreads.com. And of course, Chaz always has your back if you need a new Cure shirt to spicing up your life. So be sure to go check out 17secondshirts.bigcartel.com, where you can see the latest design that he has up for pre-order, or just keep an eye on his Instagram at 17_seconds. So be sure to check all these wonderful projects out, and if there's something you'd like to promote here on the show, go take a glance at the patreon.com/holyhour, see if that's something you'd be into. Otherwise, we would love to just have you part of our regular circle if you subscribe on iTunes and follow us on the Holy Hour Podcast Instagram page. You can always check out our Facebook page as well to get extra tidbits for each episode, and the YouTube page, of course, where you will be able to find additional content and all kinds of stuff there at YouTube. You can always email me directly, gavinconnor@gmail.com. And we got a brand new episode coming up soon for you guys, so keep your eyes and ears peeled. And thanks again, Arusha, Dana, Loren, and Hugh. You guys were awesome. Anybody else out there, feel free to send me your Cure conversations. Until next time, talk hard.